Good afternoon or evening, and welcome everyone to the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel presentation, Israeli Counterterrorism, Helping Secure Africa's Future. I'm the founder and CEO of the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, Dumisani, Washington, and so glad to have you with us. I usually have an accompaniment of some of our staff, but it is winter break, so to speak, and most of them are traveling. As a matter of fact, the executive director, my son, Joshua Washington, is out actually in South Africa visiting his wife and family, his wife's family. I should say his wife is with him there in South Africa. So they may be able to join us on tonight, but probably won't be able to speak. So again, I'm very glad to be with you on today and also welcoming our special guest as well. I'll introduce him in just a quick moment here. Just a couple of the house things here. First of all, this is a webinar. And there will be a presentation. You will be able to either raise your hands as you click on your icon there and ask a question either in the chat, or if it is possible, we'll have to do an audio and let you do it that way as well. And I see something here. I'm making an adjustment because I think I just saw a hand raise, but the hand raise is actually from one of our co-presenters here. And Justin, what I'm going to do, just in case, I saw your hand, but I don't see a note, but I'm clicking on here, sir, so that you could, while he's saying that, I want to let you all know Justin Stover is one of the presenters with this. He's actually presenting this event with us, and he is head of the Ghana-Israel Civil Diplomacy Alliance. He's based in Israel and does a lot of work in West Africa. Justin, can you hear us, sir? Justin, can you hear us? Uh-oh. Okay, maybe not. I want to make sure that I got everybody here. Justin, I'm going to mute you for now. And just message me if you have to give us a shout out. All right. So again, Justin Stover is over the Ghana-Israel Civil Diplomacy Alliance. And this presentation, this event today is presented with the Ghana-Israel Civil Diplomacy Alliance and also our friends at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Our good friends out there, Mr. Dan Diker, Tirsa Zor, and all of those there under the tutelage of the very capable old ambassador. Boy, it's escaping me. I didn't write it down on here. That's why I need my staff. Dory Gold, there we go. Thank you very much, my brain. So again, and thank God for each and every one of them and the work that they help us do here at the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel. I want to, in a moment here, just give you a little bit of context for this event today. Over the past month, ladies and gentlemen, there have been what I would consider, what we consider high profile, although not in the international media, but high profile in terms of Africa and Israel, situations in which foreign nationals in Africa have been apprehended by both the African authorities with the help of Israeli counterintelligence. There are those who are about to commit terrorist acts against Jews and Israelis in Africa. This happened first that we are aware of in Ghana. And so it was actually this event, as that happened, Justin Stover, the head of the Ghana-Israel Civil Diplomacy Alliance, who does a lot of Israel advocacy in West Africa, his colleagues reached out to him. And one of the things they requested was more help in identifying extremist elements there in their country so that they could be even more vigilant. And we are very thankful that those individuals were apprehended. But again, unfortunately, as this article that's here is part of our Substack article, you can go to ibsi.substack.com and you can see one of our articles entitled Africa's Future is Tied to Effective Counterterrorism. Okay. And then about a couple of weeks after that, there was another incident in Kenya in which other individuals were also apprehended in Kenya who were about to, again, carry out terrorist attacks against Israelis and Jews and others in Kenya. Once again, thankfully, that situation was thwarted. We at the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel recognize that the alliance between Israel and Africa is very much tied to the alliance between the Black and Jewish community in the United States of America. So our advocacy is on both fronts. So we reached out to our friends at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs and ask them for their help in suggesting someone. And this is how we are graced with the illustrious Mr. Yosef Kuperwasser. I'm going to turn off that screen share here now and ask for Yosef as he's coming on the stage. If you could go ahead and unmute there. So I guess I can unmute you and make sure that your camera is on so that we can finally introduce Yosef Kuperwasser, who's with us today. Yosef, if you can hear us, sir, go ahead and turn on your camera so we can see you as you are
trying to turn it on, but it says you cannot start your video because the host has stopped you.
Oh, the host, that would be me, right? Okay, so let's see, let's make sure.
Yeah, that would be you.
That would be me making that thing here. Let me make sure that your camera there. See that? See what happens when your staff is out of town like that? Yes, sir. So Yosef, thank you so much for coming. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a retired IDF Brigadier General, counterterrorism expert, and he also serves on staff at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. Yosef, we're so glad that you could be with us. Justin, just one quick, if any of your other colleagues are trying to get in, if anyone knows anyone who's trying to get in and they're not able to, please just shoot me a message here. We'll send another direct link to make sure that you can make it in. This is, lastly, I want to say the event is being recorded. We will not post it to social media, but we will make it available to you all who are here and continue a direct link so that you can share it with your colleagues as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to hand over to the floor. And after he's finished, we can take some Q&A. Mr. Yosef Kuperwasser. Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nitani, and it's a pleasure to be here and speak with you about this really very important issue of fighting terrorism, both by Israel and by African countries. And we are both facing the same threat, more or less, radical Islamism that's trying to carry out attacks, be it from the Shiite side of radical Islam led by Iran, or be it by the Sunni side of the radical Islam led by groups like ISIS and its affiliates in Africa that are spread all over the sub-Sahara area and in some cases over also in areas in North Africa. So first of all, a word about myself. I really am with this business of fighting terrorism for more than 40 years now, in various positions in the Israeli intelligence, in the military intelligence, where I became, before I left, I was for 5 years the director of the research division in the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces military intelligence. And beforehand, I was the commander of the intelligence in our Central Command. So I was the chief intelligence officer in Central Command, fighting against terrorism coming from the Palestinian areas in the West Bank. And so beforehand, I was stationed in Washington as an attaché for a couple of years, spending much of my time in fighting terrorism and so on and so forth. So that's what I do for a long time. I also had some small experience, a short experience, 3 years of my life I spent in Colombia as an advisor to the government of Colombia for fighting against terror in this country it is to give anybody an advice on how to fight terrorism, because terrorism is a unique phenomena for each and every case, and you also always have to fight terrorism in context. You cannot fight terrorism with generalities. I'm saying that because what I'm going to say right now, much of it is generalities, and I have to say in advance that there's something wrong with it. But at the same time, there's a good point in lending an ear to an advice from an outsider, because you know, the Colombians, for example, fought terrorism for 43 years before we came there, and with very limited success. And following our help in making them think better about their own problems, we didn't replace them. We didn't do anything by ourselves, but we just had an opportunity to help them think better about their own problems. The situation in Colombia changed following that experience dramatically. And I remember once the Minister of Defense asked me, Yossi, how come that you tell me what is happening here? And I said, no, I don't tell you what's happening here. I just help you have a better approach to how you deal with your own problems. And once you adopt this approach that is totally developed by you, is that you can get to the results you need to achieve, and look how improved the situation is. And I think this is what I can say about this meeting. I can give you some ideas that you can use in order to better fight against terrorism in Africa, which is so important for everybody. So let me first say a few words about what is fighting terror. Fighting terror is really a battle of learning. Who learns faster? Because terrorism is a strategy. And if you understand the roots of the strategy adopted by your enemy, then you have an opportunity to better adjust your way of fighting, avoid being surprised, because much of terrorism war is about surprising your enemy, and the one who is learning faster has a better chance to surprise his opponent. So you have to study and learn all the time. What is the other side going to do in the next phase? How does he think? What is going to be his next move? And come up with something that would prevent him from being successful in making his next move, and at the same time embarrass him by doing something that surprises him. And if you are able to do that, then you can be successful in this war, especially if you are able to make him realize that he doesn't have a chance to really weaken you and weaken your resilience through the use of this tool of terror in its effort to weaken you and make you give up on your goals and make his goals achievable. And if you are able, through your practice, to know what he's planning to do and make him understand that he is not going to be able to achieve his goals, his targets, then there is a chance that he will give up on terror. And that's the first step you want to see happening in this war on terrorism. First of all, to convince the other side to give up on the use of terror, and then discuss with him the issues that are separating you and him, and if there are religious problems, if there are political problems, whatever they are. And in order to be able to do that, we have to understand that conflicts with terrorism are almost always protracted and long-lasting. It's because of the nature of the battle, you cannot expect an immediate success, an immediate victory. The entire idea of victory is a little bit complicated here. The victory is when you make him give up on the use of terror. And this is not going to, anybody who's choosing the use of terror is not going to give it up easily. And the second thing you have to understand in this respect is that in order to win this war, you have to have an impact not only on the group of terrorists that are your target, but also on the constituency from which they mobilize and recruit their people. And there's always going to be war on the capability of the terror organization to recruit people, to incite people, to make people think that what they are doing in the terror organization is the right thing and the just thing to do. And you have to fight against this effort by your enemy very much and very effectively, and to also make sure that your own population has a strong resilience and the readiness to understand the just cause for which they are fighting. Otherwise, you are in trouble. And that's some of the things that are extremely important to understand. That this is a war, this is a political war, this is a cultural war, this is a war about the hearts and minds, as we say. And it's not only the war that happens through the use of kinetic warfare and this kind of things. This is not the most important thing. It's of course important, but it's not the most important. thing in fighting terror. And that's why, one of the things I was famous about was that in Israel is that when the second intifada of the Palestinians started, I said, guys, don't hurry. This war is going to last 6 years. And it lasted 5 years, and I was wrong by a year. So it's not easy to win this war. You got to have a lot of patience. You got to have a lot of capability to withstand the long-lasting terror effort against you, against your population, and to be able to prove that you are able to make an impression on the population of the other side. And that the terrorists are trying to convince to support it. And actually, if you look back at the second intifada, the way we won the intifada, on top of a lot of things we did on the military level, was that we convinced the Palestinian population that there's no point in keeping on this terror effort, and the price they're paying is much higher than the benefit they are getting from employing this tool of terrorism. And when the population reached this conclusion, the terror groups had difficulty in recruiting new recruits and had to give up as well. That was the way this happened, and I think this is very important to understand. One more thing that we have to say about it is that when we fight against terror, we are dealing with not only an asymmetric and low intensity conflict, which is something that everybody understands, but also in a situation where the definition of success is totally different between the two sides. For the terrorists, most of the time, each terror attack that they manage to carry out, even if it's not successful, even they just made it to the field and made some contact and they lost the confrontation itself, is already a success. They can portray it as a success. Whereas the defensive side, mostly we, have a problem because each successful attack is considered to be a failure. It's a successful attack by the terrorists. And you cannot really reach a situation where no successful attack is going to be carried out. So you always have this sour feeling of, oh, I didn't do well here, I didn't do well there. But the way we are trying to gauge whether we are successful or not is on the strategic level, and not necessarily on the question of whether we were able to foil all the terror attacks before they were carried out. Of course, we would like to do that, and we are making a lot of effort in an attempt to reach this result. But we know also that eventually the result is being judged by the final strategic impact that the war on terror is producing. And you can't judge it by every day, by what happened yesterday, if there was an attack or there wasn't an attack. And if you manage to surprise your enemy, that may be something that you can take into account because it might have some sort of strategic impact on the question of how successful you were in defending your goals and promoting them, and how successful was the terror group in promoting their goal. And it's beyond just carrying out an attack here and an attack there. I was talking about patience that needs to be there in order to win the war. I would say that much has to do in patience as much has to do with preparing your own public to the nature of this war, making them understand what is demanded from them, because the war on terror is usually done not only just between soldiers and the terrorists, but also between terrorists and the civilian population. And this is very important to explain. One other thing, before I go into the tools that you use during this war, is that to understand that it's not only low intensity and asymmetric. The asymmetry is far beyond just the use of different tools by the terror groups and by the defending side. But the real difference is that they do not respect any kind of rules that we are committed to. And that is being done on purpose because they believe that these rules are just done in order to protect us, which is not the case, but never mind. And because of that, they try to ignore the rules and to destroy the rules, as a matter of fact. And whereas the defensive side has to play by the book because of its values, because of its commitment to the international law, because of its commitment to the law of the country, the rule of law in the country where this confrontation is taking place. And this is, of course, something that many people consider to be an obstacle on our capability to win the war, but at the same time, it's something that we have to keep very closely and make sure that we play by these rules, because otherwise it's the enemy that wins the game, because wins the battle, because that's exactly what he wants to prove, that the rules shouldn't be abided by. So it's something that has to be always kept in mind. Let me go into some of the things you have to be able to do in this war. First of all, you have to be very strong. Strong mentally, strong in the point of view of resilience, but also strong militarily. And the first thing you have to be strong in is intelligence. Without intelligence, you cannot have the first step in fighting terror, which is prevention. And prevention is first and foremost dependent on the quality of your intelligence. And the quality of your intelligence is not only because you have all kinds of companies and the capabilities that enable you to listen to and see the enemy wherever he goes and understand in advance what he's planning to do. Also know what he thinks about how good he's doing and how bad he's doing. The intelligence is first and foremost necessary in order to understand his way of thinking and to be able to know what is going to have an impact on him, what sources of information he uses in order to make his own assessment of the situation, and how can we have some impact on the way he analyzes the situation, and making sure that we are effective in this battle about the consciousness, about the understanding, the perceptions of what's happening. And this should be done first and foremost through the use of intelligence for perception operations that are extremely important in preventing the other side of even getting to the point where he wants to carry out an attack. And that's the most important element of prevention. So just make him feel that he doesn't want to carry out an attack because he doesn't believe that this can be successful, because he's feeling that he's under threat, and that the price he's going to pay for carrying out an attack is greater than the price is going to, than the benefit is going to gain out of carrying this attack out. So this is something that's extremely important to be able to have all these kinds of intelligence, that some of it is becoming operational. And some of these effects are being achieved through the use of intelligence for operation. That's, I think, extremely important. One of the things that we have to remember in this, unfortunately, we always have to face this tension between keeping the privacy and the needs of security. And once you are in the midst of fighting terrorism, sometimes you have to compromise on privacy in order to make sure that you have enough security. It's something that everybody has troubles with, and finding the right equilibrium, the right balance is not that easy. But yes, in the end of the day, you have to pay with some privacy for gaining your security. Secondly, is that you have to be able to protect yourself. One of the things I do on top of my position in the JCPA, in the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, I'm the head of the Meir Amit Center for Information and about terrorism and intelligence. And one of the things I do in this respect, I follow the activities of ISIS around the world, including in Africa. And I see again and again this really frustrating phenomena that ISIS carry out an attack somewhere, and when the forces at the location come to help the people that were under attack, that's where ISIS already planned an ambush, and again and again and again and again, people fall in these ambushes. And that's something that you have to be, everybody has to be more effective in protecting the force and being able to avoid this repeating pattern of ambushes, just in this case, but this happens in many other places as well. It's not only in Africa, also in Iraq and Syria, they use the same technique. And there's not enough learning on that and taking lessons from this phenomena. But yes, we have to be much more aware of the fact that we are operating in an area where there is terrorism. And in my mind, not enough is being done in many places around the world in this respect. We, for example, took the burden that comes with this understanding and put guards in our airplanes, in our airfields, way before the rest of the world did it after 9/11. And that's how we put an end to some terror attacks on our planes back in the 70s. So it's something that has to be remembered. We have to carry out from time to time military operations to take I'm saying we are the defensive side, but the best way of defending yourself is the offensive way. And we have to take military operations continuously against the terrorists, wherever they are, using advanced systems that can be available. I mean, we in Israel, we use the targeted killings when necessary. When we know if somebody was planning to carry out an attack, we'd use even targeted killing, because otherwise we are going to be hit by the terrorists. We have carried out many arrests of people before they carry out their attack. Just when we know that they are planning to carry out an attack, we are already there. And it's costly. We spend a lot of money on our defense, but this is something that has to be done if you want to make it difficult for the terrorists to carry out their attacks. This means that you have to have the capability to operate in the area where the enemy is present. And in some of these cases, it's not easy. I know it from Colombia, from my experience in Colombia, when the enemy was in the jungles, it wasn't easy to get there, but at the same time, you had to be able to reach them and to tell them you can't have any safe haven. You have to be very capable in preventing the terrorists from accumulating capabilities. And when I see what's happening in some of these places where the ISIS people are taking weapons from positions they take over, that's really problematic. We have to prevent these people from having any arms. And whenever they take arms, we have to be able to carry out an attack that will prevent them from having these arms that they started to take. And we have to keep very high public awareness of the fact that there is terrorism around them. People know that, but they don't always know what do they have to do. And more than often, I see this phenomenon of people who don't know what to do when there is a terror attack. We have to raise the awareness and make sure that everybody knows what they have to do. We have in Israel the Home Front Command who helps people to understand exactly what they have to do when something happens. And by that, we limit the numbers of casualties that we suffer considerably. People just know what to do. And I'm not sure that everywhere else it's the same. In Israel, it's very famous that if you leave a bag unattended, immediately 5 people will jump on it and say, hey, what's this bag? Well, who owns it? What's going to happen? And you're going to lose your bag. So it's, I'm not saying that everybody and everywhere should be as aware as in Israel, but it's very important to have high alert. The other thing is that once all this prevention effort did not work, you have to be able to react in a way that would make clear to the terrorists that it was a mistake to carry out this attack. So you have to be able to carry out military operations against them in a way that is going to be very painful for them. That's what we do repeatedly in Gaza. And every time we do that, we gain some several years of quiet. That's what we do. And we don't do it just against everybody. We, of course, focus on terror targets. But the terrorists understand that we can reach them, and they think twice before carrying out the next attack. We have to develop our defensive capabilities. In Israel, you know, I'm sure you are familiar with the capabilities we have developed. And what we have developed was done exactly on the same logic that I mentioned before of learning. We learned what the enemy is developing, and we were able to develop things that were ready to deal with these capabilities just on time. The most important and the famous stuff is Iron Dome that enables us to foil the attempts to hit our population with the use of mortars and rockets. But it's true for everything. It's, and, you know, in the last conflict in Gaza, they tried everything. They tried to surprise us with not only with long-range rockets, but also with unmanned air vehicles, with unmanned underwater submarine, with all kinds of tricks. And we were able to thwart all of them because we realized that this is what they're going to do. And we have used our technology in order to develop all kinds of answers to each and every thing that they have planned, and nothing worked for them. And this was extremely impressive in my mind, and very telling for them that they should either give up the terror, which they decided to do after 11 days. Actually, they were ready to do that even after 5. And to think again whether they really want to go to another round in the near future. Now they're busy learning themselves how to overcome the capabilities we have introduced in this conflict. And I hope they won't be able to come with something impressive, but we have to realize that they are now working on that, and we should work on something that would be more impressive than what they are planning. The other thing is that we have to work hard with is the legal domain. We have to make sure that we have a legal infrastructure that allows us to operate successfully and effectively against terrorism. And this is always blamed to be a burden on the capabilities of democracies to fight against terror. But in truth, it's not. You just have to make sure that everybody understands what is allowed and what is not allowed, what can be done, what cannot be done. And I think it's there are many things that can be done and not always used properly. Like, for example, we just outlawed 6 organizations of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a Marxist terror organization, that were pretending to be a non-government organization working for the benefit of the public. But in fact, there were groups that were gathering, collecting money for the terror organization. So it's if you have the law that enables you to do that, and you under all kinds of limits and conditions, then you can do that, and that's what we did. And same with a lot of other stuff that we do with our legal infrastructure. Very important in this respect. The other thing you have to make sure in the retaliation is the reaction is to make sure that you use the legitimacy you gain out of the terror attacks in order to gain international support. Now, it's not enough that the international support is being translated only to general expressions of support. You got to make sure that you get this support that can be translated into practical and tangible realities. And this is something that is not easy to be done. We all saw what happens when the international community decides to work, for example, against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. It's not being done enough in other places. And I think it's very important to have this international support in order to deter the terrorists. I was speaking about the resilience, which is very important. We have to work very hard on resilience. We have to invest in that. We have to protect our population from the messages of the enemy that are meant to erode this resilience. And we have to spend a lot of effort in explaining to the population why it is important to sacrifice what needs to be sacrificed in order to be successful in this war against terror. And this is what is important for us. On top of that, I just mentioned the effort of fighting against radicalization, against incitement. Very important to make sure that the terrorists know that incitement has a price, and to deter them from doing that. And finally, to make sure that in order to weaken their capability to recruit, we are able to have direct contact with the population that is their target audience. And in some cases it's obvious, but in our case it's not that obvious, and convince them that what would contribute best for their quality of life is to avoid terror and fight against terror and help us in the war against terror. And we are quite successful in that, in spite of the difficulties of our special case. So these are the elements that enable us to fight terror. As I said, it's a very complicated war, and it requires a very comprehensive attitude in order to fight it. You can't do just one or two of the things that I mentioned. You have to do them all, because each one of them supports the other and complement the other. So we have to do that in this way. I'll stop here and open it for questions. I have like 15 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Yossi. So much information and so critical. And I see there's a couple of questions already. I want to remind everyone in the audience that Yossi is available for a couple of questions. So you can see the Q&A icon on your screen. You can go ahead and type your question in there. And then I will see those and ask him. I see a couple of questions on the other screen, so I can use that as well. So what I'm going to do, Yossi, here is move this one thing. Yossi, you had there was one thing that I was taking notes, obviously, very diligently, and we'll be sharing this with our other constituents as well. But I do want to ask you, as we start off the question and answer period for a few minutes here, you made a statement about using the legitimacy of the fight to gain international support for the actual campaign, I guess is what you mean. Can you say a little bit more about that? How do you mean using the legitimacy to gain the international support?
So usually when there is a big event, there's a period in which the international community is shocked, right? And they say, oh, that's how can that be? And if you manage to use immediately this event in order to change and carry out these some efforts that you didn't, you understood you need to do them, but you were not able to do them because you felt that if you do them, there's going to be some criticism from the international community. Then that is the golden opportunity you have, and you have to use it in order to move forward. We did it several times. I mean, after the Hamas launched rockets to Jerusalem, we carried out an operation in Gaza. And we knew that the international community is going to support it because everybody understood that this is totally unacceptable that Hamas will launch rockets at Jerusalem from Gaza. The same happened 20 years ago with Operation Defensive Shield in 2002. Again, after there was a suicide bombing attack on a festival in Israel, with 30 people died. And right after that, we finally decided to enter the cities ruled by the Palestinians and make arrests and take care of terrorists. So you have to be able to prepare yourself in advance, because this legitimacy is going to come and go. It's there for a very short while. So you have to be able to take advantage of that and be prepared in advance with plans. What are we going to do in the day of the legitimacy? Wow. And that's very important. You don't start, if you start planning after the legitimacy, by the time you finish the planning, there's not going to be any legitimacy.
Wow. Wow. So that spurs another three other questions, which I'm not going to ask. I'm going to ask the questions I see from the audience. First of all, the question, why do you think terror is intensifying in Africa?
Well, first of all, I think that they are impressed with the success of ISIS in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere. You see what's happening right now in Afghanistan. So it's becoming more appealing to many constituencies. Secondly, there is a weakness of the governments in many places in Africa, which enables and some areas of where the rule of the government is limited, let's say, and this is of course a very fertile ground for the terror groups. And finally, I think they don't see a strong reaction by the government to what they're doing. And this, we saw it with Boko Haram, and we saw it with some other groups. We see it in northern Mozambique these days, in the Palma area and all of that, Cabo Delgado. Yeah, that's not enough government reaction. And once they see this, they're very good in identifying weakness. And that's what made them successful in Syria and Iraq. That's what makes them successful in Sinai, in Egypt. They always take advantage of weak governments and the weakness of the ruling government, and they take advantage of that. And they do it quite successfully. Wow. And finally, maybe I will add also that some of them are real zealots, really believe in the cause they are fighting for. And when they are totally determined to a goal, and the other side is sometimes consumed by internal fighting and by lack of understanding of what is the goal, what is the ideology I'm fighting for. That makes it much easier for them. And that's why I think we need strong governments, strong armies, and initiative-taking approach, offensive approach of defense, and finally a strong belief in what we are doing and what we stand for. That is critical for success.
Wow, wow. Boy, every one of your answers stirs more questions, but I want to make sure I get to these other questions here. There was another question a little bit earlier, Yossi, which was, what role do you feel that unemployment advances the acts of terrorism?
Of course it does, and I was saying about speaking about the economic conditions. When the economic condition is poor, then two things happen. First of all, people will go anywhere if you promise them a place in heaven and a salary on earth. It's very, very effective. Secondly, what happens is that with limited economic conditions, the government itself becomes weak. And as I said before, that weak governments also play into the hands of the terrorists. So that's a combination of both. Makes the economic conditions very important. That's why we have to prove not only that our economy is doing well, but that we can support and change the economic conditions of the constituents of the terrorist side. And that's very important. Not only important, that's very important.
So Yossi, along with that, a couple other questions here, just to connect to what you're saying. And so when you see in Israel, for example, from the times of Golda Meir as the foreign minister working diligently in Africa, that's both for Africa and for Israel, correct? That as Africa is strong and resilient and the governments are strong, then there's less opportunity for things like terrorism. Is that correct?
Of course. Look, when we approach any country in Africa, the first thing we do, we try to support the economy. We understand that the strong economy is going to be a shield against the efforts of the radicals, of the terrorists. We want the people to have a better life, but we believe that people with better life are less inclined to support terror. And so we hit two birds at the same time. And this is very important. And That's why we have a special branch in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs that is just for supporting African countries in becoming more capable economically. And we, in the past, in the days of Golda Meir, we did it a lot. We do it again now. Look at this entire effort we are now doing with the Sudan, for example. It's also based on the same issue, but then we are supporting the South Sudan on the same economic level, and many other countries wherever we can. We are more than happy to help economically, and also on the way of fighting terror. That's also something that you can't just rely on the economy. You have to also fight.
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the reasons why IBC exists and does the part that it does. It recognizes that as Israel is doing that with Africa, Black Americans can be some of the best ambassadors here to champion what's going on and secure Africa's future in that way. See, another question here says, and I'm just reading the question exactly, does Yossi see a role for African nations to help pressure the U.S. to stop dealing so foolishly with Iran? I'm just reading the question as it came, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, of course, because the African countries, it's not about Israel, it's about Iran. And the African countries are a target of Iran as well. And they are operating all over the African countries. It's, because, first of all, there are Muslims there, so they are a natural target. And secondly, because of the strategic importance of Africa. So they come to Africa and try to carry out attacks, as we mentioned in Ghana and Kenya, that you mentioned in the beginning, but it's not going to be the end. They will keep trying, and it's not going to end. And there are many Shiites also, especially in Sierra Leone and other places, where they are trying to gain money. That's another target, and promote terrorism. So yes, if they manage to have an atomic bomb or capability, and if they manage to have a lot of money as promised to them in the context of this agreement that everybody's talking about, this would mean that they would have more money to support radicals in Africa as well, and to finance their activities in Africa. And you'll see even more than what you've seen when they were under pressure.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely, along with that question, as Iran is more and more flushed with cash, that affects, among many other things, Africa, because they're able to finance the terrorism that's actually increasing in Africa, dragging Africa even further into Israel's fight, because they are attempting to destabilize Israel. They're trying to use Africa to come against Israel. Once again, it's the same way with the propaganda in the United States, as Israel's enemies came against Israel within the Black American community, trying to sever that Black Jewish tie. This is why it's so important that we keep that alliance strong. One last question I see right now: how can underfunded countries in Africa stand against terrorism as a well-funded enemy such as Iran? How, I know you've been answering that, but go even further, Yossi. How can these African nations that are still emerging stand against an Iran that would come in with lots of money and try to entice? What are some of the things, other than, like you said, strengthening Africa's economy?
Well, I think, first of all, Israel is going to be more than happy to help. Really more than happy, because we understand this is a global war. It's not only about us. Everybody's fighting that, and the well-being of the African countries is important to us. First of all, because we want you all to live in security and safety and enjoy democracy. And secondly, because we see the Iranian threat happening all over the place. And because of that, you can really rely on us. I hope also on the Americans. You know, I'll finish with a story. When I was in Colombia, there was also a very big American contingency over there. And one day, the leader of the American contingency came to me and said to me, "General, I have a question. You tell them the same things that I tell them. And when I tell them, they don't do it. And when you tell them, they do it. What is the secret?" And I told him, "Listen, we come from a different experience. And, we've been fighting that. I personally fought it for 40 years. Well, at that time, it was 35 years. Wow. So it's They respect my experience, and they know that I care about it. Maybe they don't feel the same about you. I don't know. It's open, but that's one explanation. And I think that yes, America is going to be there for you as well, but they are always more cumbersome and more difficult to convince. It's Israel. Don't hesitate to ask for Israel's support on fighting terror. Both the country, I know Mossad and other functions that we have are dedicated to that. They will be more than happy. And we have a lot of security companies that can also come up with people with experience and then help. And sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't check enough the ground before they come. But most of the time, I think they do a very good job.
Absolutely. Yossi, this has been tremendous. Someone did make a note. I saw that note on there about Yossi. There's someone from Ghana who wants to know if you would come and speak and be a part of another event. I'll make sure I'll pass your contact information along, because I know that there are going to be others who want to hear from your expertise. And so again, we really appreciate it. I do want to just, as we get ready to close out here, just say that one of the other things you said that struck us here was, along with the whole resilience as well, everything's so powerful. You were saying that right here, you were talking about what it seemed like you were talking about was the actual propaganda part of it and everything. Like, remember you were saying that we had to seize the legitimacy of that moment, right? Because the other side will seize it and then use the propaganda against Israel to try to reframe whatever the conflict was in a way that Israel was the aggressor, that type of thing. You'll see one last thing here as we get ready to go. Could you say something about what that means on the ground in a place like the United States of America? You have a situation, whether it was Ghana, whether it's Kenya, or just the unfortunate car ramming earlier today in Israel, the stabbing the earlier today. When that disinformation hits the ground, how important is it for Israel groups to actually get out that information in a quick pace?
Very important. I have to finish it within a second because I have to go on television in a minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
it's very important. And as I told you, we are all fighting against the same enemy, the same source of terror. And we gather information. How did we manage to help on this information in Ghana and Kenya? Because we gather information about the threat all over the world, not only in our place. We help the British and the Australians and whoever. Yes, it's not only for Africa; it's for everybody, because we collect information about the radicalist Muslims, and they are operating all over the world. So we know about what some of them are doing all over the world. We don't do enough. We don't know enough, but we know more than many others. And that's the intelligence that we gather, and we want everybody to be able to use it. So we don't keep it to ourselves. Yes, we share it for free.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you, Yossi, so much. Thank you, everyone else, for coming as well. I hope you all had, this was very informative for you. It is recorded. If you would like a recording, just shoot us an email at ibsi.now.org. If you're not on an emailing address, you can go ahead and email us there from the website, and we'll make sure that you get a recording as well. Yossi, thank you so much. Hope to see you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, now.
Thank you, Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.